Hey again. Sorry if I'm a little bit quiet. It's a bit late at night where I am, but I figured it was a good time to get stuff out of my head, which I've been penting up for the last 3 days or so, and get it out before I take the rest of my summer vacation. So let's talk quickly about policy. I feel like I spent a decent amount of time ruminating over the classics philosophy, but it's all felt a little bit abstract. So I want to lay a couple things out for the people I will have the pleasure of working with for the next year, and sort of laying out some expectations. That's all. So let's get started. I might have said this before. At this point, it's a little hard to keep track, but I feel like I'm a pretty chill, easygoing person, sort of just as a principle. I tend not to put up too much of a fuss because I understand that putting pressure on other people can be a lot. Like, as someone who handles pressure, kind of mixed results, I can get it. It can make or break certain moments, and I think our experience from last year is that for something like classics, where we don't have a lot of great authority, I mean, for a lot of people, it's just easy to just opt out instead of facing the pressure in front of you. So I've debated heavily on how to approach this year with that experience in mind. I think because we're going into a new year with a relatively inexperienced group, and I'm not just saying that for other people. Like, I myself would call my leadership ability not exactly experienced for this this specific kind of work. But because of that, it's hard to be particularly forceful and demanding, because I think as of right now we don't have an amazing unified vision across all of exec, which, to be fair, it's still the summer. We still don't have to have all that laid out, but I think I want to allocate some time at the start of the school year to that specifically, just consolidating what we do have and what vision we want. And I don't want to do that on my own, not because I'm lazy, which admittedly I am a little bit. I mean, I'm doing this episode 3 days late, but the reason is because Classics is a very personal club and a very personal experience. It tends, especially with the last couple of years, it tends to have something of a hands-off approach to the fine details. Most of the higher up exec is mostly there to guide people in the right direction so that they can make their own judgment calls on how to run things. And I think I want my position as a leader to reflect that. I would love for people to sort of carve their own paths in their classic experience, because that's what I did, and that's what made the club so special for me. But the problem with this year is that without a centralized vision, we're going nowhere. I think we've seen that in past years. We don't have a strong direction to go in. We just kind of all go in separate directions and literally pull the club apart from the inside. So somehow we have to balance giving people the individual freedom to do with classics what they want, which was always kind of my vision for the club, even from my first years, with making sure everyone's on the same page and working towards a sensible goal. Now, I've discussed a bit, and one idea that came about that I really liked was working under the motto of constant upwards growth. It's the perfect balance of something clear and concrete that every decision can aim towards, but it's also vague enough that people can take their own interpretations and do things the way they want, that eventually leads to this ultimate goal that everyone's working towards. It sounds super idealistic, I know, but honestly I think it's exactly what the club needs at a time like this. It's just, there's so much stuff going on, it's so chaotic. I think that's the one thing we've been missing a lot of in these years, and it's something that is more important to us now than ever. So why not just set it as, here's a goal worth pursuing, now go out there and do it. Like, it's not like it's a huge, complicated action plan. It's very similar to how I feel like I would make decisions on a regular day-to-day basis in life, for instance. Like, I'm not thinking about big picture morality or anything like that on an individual judgment call when I make a decision like what shirt to wear or what brand of cereal to eat. But my principles, my guiding forces still have a hand in all that. Like, if you're trying to lead a healthier life, for instance, that'll influence some of those small choices just because you think at the back of your mind, hey, we're trying to be healthier here. So I think growth is a similar good theme to aim for when we're making small judgment calls to the club, and we go, okay, what option is going to be the best for growing the club? Because I think with the last year especially, the club has been a little bit self-serving. It kind of mainly benefited those already in the club, and even then it kind of pushed out some people that were kind of on the fringes for a while, where they just fell completely out of the loop. So I think in this year we're kind of shifting gears and doing things for the benefit of people joining the club, because that's really what we need right now. But that's not to say that I can completely ignore the people that are close, because those are the people that I'm, giving up a lot of trust to make those proper decisions. And that's where I come in. So if you're listening to this as a member of exec, I encourage you to think about what your powers and responsibilities are in the club. Like I said, I'm a pretty easygoing guy. So if you take on a lot of responsibility, I'm not going to stop you or anything. If you don't take on a lot, maybe I'll have a couple of things to say, but certainly it's up to people to kind of find their own paths. We have the roles given to us by the years before via the elections, if you can call them that. We have those, and that serves as a pretty good guiding principle. But since we're really rebuilding the club here, it's going to be up to the people actually in those positions to find a proper niche and find themselves in, filling in some responsibilities that the club needs, ones that they're actually good at doing and ones that they can feel comfortable pushing in a forwards direction. It's certainly not going to be easy, and some people are going to have to make a lot of sacrifices, myself included. But I think it's for the interest of the club that we get that sorted out early, which is why I want to take maybe the first 2 weeks or so as sort of a period of consolidation within the club. I just want to be able to go around to people, ask them what things they're thinking about, where their focuses are, not just so that I can kind of understand exec better, which is very important as a president, but just to ensure the club has a vision, because I think we've kind of let people get away in the past with just kind of breezing through classics without really thinking about it. I mean, I got away with doing that for like 3 years before I had to think about what I really wanted to do with this club. So, to me, that's a little bit upsetting. Obviously, it's on me for not giving it too much thought, but I'm kind of a path of least resistance guy, as I said. So if I can get away without doing something, then I will. And that is not something that I would want to see at a critical time like this. I don't want to be able to let people just kind of slack off and only do what is necessary for them. We really need to be thinking about the club here, which is admittedly a little bit weird, given how much I've said that classics is the people in it, rather than just the club itself as an entity. But if we want to be able to pass any of this on to future years, there has to be something. There has to be something to the club itself. All we've really got are whatever notes got left behind. The Constitution, I guess, saying how to run the club. But that's about it, to be honest. So most of that stuff we're going to have to figure out for ourselves, which will take a lot of initiative, a lot of perseverance, a lot of other good sounding words too, I'm sure. But you can see that it's not something you can just kind of sit through. So the 3 things I think we need the most are a direction to go in, which I think at least I am confident that I have and that I can give to other people. Whether or not they'll agree with it initially, I do not know. It's still a ways away before I have to tell people. But I think they can also see the importance of giving us a direction. And I think they want that too. I think people want to do something with the club, but a lot of us are struggling with exactly how to do that. So that's the first thing. Second are the resources, of which admittedly there is not much. Like, there's me, there's McLaren. McLaren is basically going to be the treasure trove of historical information on what's worked in the past. So resources like that are invaluable. And I've also said before that I want to be as open as possible with the people of the club so that they feel like I'm an approachable person, and I will try my best to answer questions, provide reasonable judgments. And since I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on what I would want the club vision to be, and I guess technically it is mine because, president of Classics and what have you, I feel like I have the authority to enforce that as well. So I will definitely act with those interests in mind, so I feel confident that I could make a good judgment call on someone's behalf if they need it. So putting myself out there as an outlet for people to come in and express their problems is very important. But I also want people to feel confident enough that they can go approach problems on their own, which is very much a Classics experience if I've ever heard of one, which is just toughing your way through a very weird and unusual situation. Ultimately, I think that's one of the best things about Classics, is that it teaches you a lot about some more unique kinds of problem solving. The third thing is just, I don't really know how to phrase it other than just having a good go-getting attitude and mindset, which is just you have to really be willing to put a lot in order to get the results you want. The people that I have talked to, which is admittedly a very small group, have a lot of great things to say, and I have every confidence that there's enough people to keep Classics running. Which is not to say that it'll be a great year. It would be a very tiny club, and it would basically have enough to sustain itself. So it'd live another year, but it's not the condition I would want to pass on and feel happy about. I want to be able to say that this year has done something positive. And like I said, it doesn't have to be much. The term growth does not imply massive amounts of growth, just more than zero, which I think is all anybody could really ask of us at this point. So I'm setting the bar admittedly a little bit low, but that's because there's no way to know what to expect. So that's why you need people at your back that you can confidently put faith in, that they can do the right thing and push things forward on their own as well. I will be there in the background for as much support as possible because we need it now more than ever. But you really have to have those areas of trust, which is why, again, I want those first 2 weeks to be really getting to connect with people and make sure, the Classics insides are working before we can then grow our branches outwards and reach out to the next years, like the nines, for instance. It would be a little bit silly if we tried to convince people to get into the club and that it would be a positive experience if we can't even say the same for the people already here. I think we need that stuff sorted out first before we can do anything, like for things like junior trivia, for things like preparing for conference, if that's even going to happen. Having the people running it being ready for it is definitely priority number one in front of the people participating, because I feel like last year there was a couple roadblocks, admittedly, not because any of us were bad people, but because going into something like that without that centralized vision is difficult if people have got different ideas of what junior trivia should or can be. you're just setting yourself up for endless amounts of internal conflicts. And if if your club can't even get along with itself, how is that going to look on the outside when you're trying to get new people in? It's tricky, and it's not going to be easy, but that's why I think it's so important to dedicate a large amount of time to sorting that out. Obviously, other stuff matters, and we do want to be able to reach out to get that growth in, but there are just some things that I can't tolerate, and not to be rude or anything, of course, but there's just some necessities that we have to get out of the way. And again, I don't want to be harsh on people, but I will definitely be kicking some pants to make sure that people are moving forward steadily. My end hope is that everybody involved can kind of understand where I'm coming from and see the importance of the things that I'm saying, or at the very least be confident enough to input their own ideas. See, that's another thing as well. People on exec also have their own influence. They can share in their own ideas. So I hope that their first instinct, if they see something wrong, is to come to me about it, and we sort it out, and we come up with a new classics vision that everyone can agree on, rather than them just walking away, which is something that has unfortunately happened from time to time. I just realized, and this is sounding very much like the first episode of the podcast, because I'm establishing the club vision again. But this time I think I have the added wisdom of talking with way more people and having a lot more experience in philosophical musing. I hope it shows that I've gotten a lot better at this. But at the end of the day, what we need is a robust plan, because just running at our problems without solid concrete backing has historically not worked so well, and sort of whittled us down to our smallest units. So having the club work as one is going to be our greatest asset, I think, during the year, because that's something that people are drawn to, both as, a group of friends and as an effective leadership conglomerate. So I guess, again, if you're an exec person, maybe not even of this year, but of the future, watching this, I really encourage you to think about, the age-old question: what does classics mean to you? Not just in the sense of what things do you get out of classics, but what things do you put in? What are your contributions? What part of classics are you taking and making your own and pushing forward for future people? Because if your answer is that you don't know, I would strongly recommend, you take some time, you sit down at a desk and you think about it, because the reason is definitely not that the club isn't giving you any opportunities. There's always going to be an open opportunity. You can basically do whatever you want, and as long as it's productive, no one's going to stop you. So it's just a question of, are you willing to get out there and make a positive difference? I think with the way that the Classics Club is free and open, especially this year, since, again, I'm being very, very lax, the opportunity to make a great and important change is always going to be there, and there's never really been a better time than literally in the club's phase of regrowing. So it's going to be up to you to put yourself out there and not to be cheesy, but be the change you want to see. Because what I've learned is that no one else is going to do it for you. So if you want something to happen, it's got to be you. You've got to call the shots. For me, that's been incredibly nerve-wracking because, again, not something I'm used to doing, but I know it's for the good of the club, and I am willing to follow through, and I'm hoping that those who stand alongside me this year will be able to say the same. I think that pretty much sums it up. Hopefully I haven't put too much pressure on you, for the years ahead, but what can I say? It's important, and it's something I believe in. It's something that I've struggled with a lot, so I encourage you to think about it as soon as possible, because it's going to make your time in this club so much better, and everyone else as well. Because if you can positively influence the club in such a significant way that people years from now are still feeling those benefits, then you can truly look back and say that you've changed lives, which is something that most clubs just can't give you. So I'd say the iron is hot, the time is right, the opportunity is there. You just need to find the people that are willing to take it. And if they're working with the club, they're working for themselves, they're working with everybody, it's only going to make those wheels spin faster. And I'm hoping by the end of this year, there's enough of us in this club that have made enough positive changes that things are really going to be on the right track in years to come, which, again, is the most anybody can ask. So let's have some fun with it, all right? Let's have a good attitude, and let's go and show people what this club really is. Man, that is the cheesiest ending ever. Oh my goodness, I sound like an ideologue. Oh goodness, this is gonna hurt so much to upload later.